Hey everyone, this is what your archaeologist didn't tell you. Today I am on with Linguas Amo. Today we're going to be giving you an update on the Scott Stripling Mount Ebal curse tablet. You just to straight out, for those that just are here for the update, Scott Stripling and the gang submitted the article for the Mount Ebal curse tablet to the Archaeological and Anthropological Sciences Journal. So stay tuned for the significance of this update as well as what impact it plays on the authenticity and importance of this find. Linguist Amo, go ahead and give us your background.
I have a master's and MA degree from Liberty University in biblical studies. Right after that, I took Hebrew and Greek. I got those under my belt, and I was just recently accepted into Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary for a THM, and then I'll probably do my PhD there. I'm not really sure yet. And it's going to be in Old Testament text criticism. So that's exactly what I plan on doing. So, yeah. What if you guys don't know? I don't know. For text criticism, it's comparing manuscripts that families of manuscripts. So you compare Genesis with other Genesis manuscripts, and you do find out what is better translation, what is redundant, or whatever. So that would include the Septuagint, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Masoretic text, things like that. So that's what I'm gonna do when I'm finished. So,
All right, sounds good. Awesome. All right, so let's get into it. Tell us what this picture is here.
this is a picture, supposedly a picture of the Tetragrammaton with only 3 letters instead of the 4, and it has a yod, a hey, and a vav in the what Stripling or Petrovich would argue is the Proto-Hebrew alphabet script.
Okay.
Um, it looks more like the early alphabetic scripts of, like, say, the mid-second millennium or early second millennium. So we're looking at 1500 or before.
Okay.
So that's what this looks like to me.
Gotcha. All right. And yeah, so we have the English translation here. Cursed by God Yahweh, you will die cursed. Cursed, you will surely die. Cursed by Yahweh, cursed. Now, to most people listening, this is going to sound like nonsense. Also, who is this found by? What is you have? This drawings made by Gershon Galil,
Mm-hmm.
Scott Stripling. Tell us who the people are and other people that are also significant in this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, Scott Stripling is an archaeologist, and he works alongside ABR, which is Associates for Biblical Research, and he's currently usually they do excavations around Shiloh, I think, and he found this tablet, if you will, in an unprovenance, which is a fancy term for saying it wasn't found in situ, which means it wasn't found as is in the ground. It was found through a wet sifting process. So that's what we mean by unprovenance. Going back about 40 years, though, there was Adam Zertal who excavated the site from 82 to 89, I think, around the Mount Ebal, the altar there. He discovered the altar, and then he seemed to think that that was the altar discussed in Deuteronomy 27 and Joshua 8. So that's where the tablet was found. Now, the tablet is actually it's folded, so we can't actually open it up because it'll dissolve. It'll be destroyed if we do. But we can do tomography, and we can find out what letters are incised on the tablet. And that's what they found here was that inscription, cursed, and it's supposed to be a chiasm, which is a literary device used in biblical Hebrew, which kind of it goes A B C C B A in that order. So the beginning and the end would be related, then the middle, and so on and so forth. So that's what a chiasm is in general for that. So yeah.
Cool.
That's what they found.
ABR. What is that? The people who sponsor Scott Stripling and them? Is that what's going on here?
Sort of. He gets other financial backing from forget the university, but he gets financial backing from other sources, but he does work alongside ABR. So he works alongside Peter Geert van der Veen, and Johannes, and with Johannes Gutenberg Universiteit. So he does work alongside in Gershon Galil, and I'm not really sure what the reputation is as far as this inscription is concerned. But from what I'm hearing, it doesn't look good. I don't know why. This is just hearsay, so don't quote me on it. So that's what's going on with this.
Okay, and all right, yeah. So, did you want to say something else?
Oh yes, I was going to say. So they did when they did the scans. They brought forth these sensationalist claims saying that this is going to change how biblical archaeology is done, and how it's going to change biblical archaeology, and then this just puts the nails in the coffin for the documentary hypothesis, and all these sensationalist claims, and that's really not how it works. It'll be an interesting find when they publish this. Like you said, they'll publish this in the journal, so we'll probably read it in the journal, but on the whole, we probably won't give it that much, but we'll see. So,
Gotcha. So, yeah, significant. So, this is just claims that I found online from either ABR or the actual people doing the publishing the article, or just even news journal articles. So, importance. Some people have said this is the earliest mention of Yahweh in Hebrew. That the pottery found with the tablets can be dated back as 1400 BC. So that'd be a super old inscription. Once again, earliest Proto-Hebrew. Some said that it demonstrates that writing and reading did exist in Israel at this early date, and thus portions of Scripture could have been written at this time, as the Bible affirms. They put the weight of the evidence for the Exodus on a 15th century BC date. Some have also said it demonstrates that texts like Deuteronomy 27 and Joshua 8 have a historical basis. So this could be obviously a big deal as far as the historicity of the Bible, Exodus, all that kind of stuff. And that's mainly why we're here today, to talk about it. Now, obviously a big question is, it's not being published yet, which means that the whole publishing process, I guess, just tell us what is the importance of the publishing process? Why it seems like they went public first before publishing it. What is the significance of that?
Normally when people discover things like this, they introduce their finds at a conference first, or they publish them in a journal. That's normally the channels that archaeologists, and not just archaeologists, any person of academia, those are the channels they always go through. They go through a conference or the journal process, the journal process. So normally that's what they do. What's interesting with Stripling and company is that they went straight to the press, and then they sensationalized it, which is, it's not really taboo, but it's definitely a big no-no. So that's where it's raising some questions. Namely, my problem with it is the sensationalism behind it. You just don't make sensationalist claims like that. How it's going to change the field of archaeology, and how we look at the Bible, and it just puts the nail in the coffin for the documentary hypothesis. So I can't even think of a fallacy for that, but I'm sure there is one with that one. But that's the main thing we've got issues with. Another one is we haven't seen the images. There are no images, none, except the image that you showed with the the tetragrammaton minus the one letter. So that's another thing. Another thing is that they're calling it the Proto-Hebrew script, and that doesn't exist. You've got the early alphabetic script, or some people call it the Proto-Sinaitic script, or the Proto-Canaanite script. That's the script that they're talking about. Most scholars talk about, but they're making that claim that it was written in Proto-Hebrew. This is the oldest Hebrew inscription, I think, right? Yeah. So it's just I've just one question after another with this discovery.
Yeah.
So
So the
another
question,
problem was
before we get
that
to that, got a question for you.
oh, okay.
So if so you said that it's not Proto-Hebrew, so like I've done some research. If you go to Wikipedia, there's plenty of books that talk about Proto-Hebrew. Like, are you saying that Proto-Hebrew doesn't exist, or that this just can't be it? What are you saying here?
I would argue it's a Paleo Hebrew. There's a Paleo Hebrew script before the square script writing that we commonly see if you just open up the BHS, which is the Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. If you just open that up, that's all written in square script. Before that would be Paleo Hebrew, in which most of the books of the Old Testament were written, which is in Paleo Hebrew. And then before Paleo Hebrew, you had the Phoenician script, and then the early alphabetic inscriptions, which would be the Proto-Sinaitic, Proto-Canaanite, etc. So that's that's how the scripts advance through the ages or through the years. So there really isn't a Proto-Hebrew script unless you want to call it like Paleo-Hebrew or something. So, but it's definitely the Old Hebrew script is what I would call it. Not Proto-Hebrew, but that doesn't matter. Is a descendant of the Phoenician script, which is a descendant of the early alphabetic script. So, yeah.
And what's your claim? What's your, I guess, issue with people calling it, Proto-Hebrew script or Paleo-Hebrew?
I've got no problem with Paleo Hebrew because we actually have evidence. We actually have scripts written in Paleo Hebrew. Some of the Dead Sea, I think some of the Dead Sea Scrolls were. That's how far down Paleo Hebrew went with the square script. So, yeah, that's just not what we call it normally, Proto Hebrew, because we don't know. Like, some of the scripts could be written in. They could be using a script and it's written in another language. I was going to quote here Dr. Colston of George Washington University on this very thing. And I'll just, this might be right. Okay, so I'll start here at the paragraph. So he says here, this is what Colston says. So he goes, for example, the well-known Tel Ferechia statue inscription found in Syria in 1979 is written in a rather majestic Phoenician script, but the language of the inscription is in Aramaic and not Phoenician. So these scripts could have been circulating, Sinai 374. There's all these inscriptions throughout the Sinai could have been using that script, but you don't know what language it was using. So you can't really just automatically shoehorn something in there and say, oh, this is Proto-Hebrew or this is Hebrew. So
essentially, we just don't know a way to differentiate between whether it's Proto-Canaanite or Proto, all the different. I guess what are the different options that this is?
Oh, so the different options. Some scholars call it different names. So Proto-Canaanite, Proto-Sinaitic. It's the same script. Colson prefers to call it early alphabetic script. That's the difference between it. But it's definitely the precursor to the Phoenician script, and then Phoenician's the precursor to the Old Hebrew script.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, so obviously you have the question of epigraphy. So I'm under the understanding that, first before one, obviously we don't have pictures of it yet, and
No.
I'm under the understanding that that's an issue because we don't have the ability, or archaeologists, people that actually know what they're doing, don't have the ability to look at it and come to their own conclusions. Like, we have to rely on the assumptions of people like Gershon Galil and Peter Gert van der Veen, those two people. So, so I guess my question is, is it possible that the picture that Gershon Galil drew for us, like, that's not actually what it is?
it's an actual script, but to come out and just confidently claim that that's a tetragrammaton minus the hey is a bit sensationalist and speculative is the problem. So
So you're saying that
that's
it
my
could be.
issue with it.
Mm, so you're saying that it could be something else.
Yeah, yeah. It could be
Gotcha.
definitely be something else. Another thing is that it's written, I think the image is written from left to right. Another thing Colston says in his article for the BAR, the Biblical Archaeological Review, is that the direction of the writing would vary in the second millennium. So he goes, some early alphabetic texts would read right to left, others would read left to right, and still others were written, as he calls, as the ox plows. So that is, left to right, and then you go down a line, it was written from right to left, and then left to right again. And then he goes on to say, occasionally a text in early alphabetic script would even be written vertically, which is what you see in some of these inscriptions, in columns or so-called columnar writing. So, and it included a larger stock of consonants, arguably as many as 27 or 28, before being reduced to 22 letters, such as the Phoenician script. And that reflects the Hebrew script because the Hebrew script has the same number of letters. So, yeah, that's the thing with it. So you get by the time the end of the second millennium comes around, which is the late Bronze Age, um, he lists, I think, 3 or 4 developments that happened. He goes, the stance of the letters became more stabilized and standardized. 2, the direction of writing became consistently right to left, just like you see in Northwest Semitic languages like Hebrew, Aramaic. And because of a number of consonant mergers, the number of letters was reduced down to 22. Vowels, of course, were still not represented yet. So because of these developments, the convention within the field of epigraphy is to refer to the next stage of the Northwest Semitic scripts as Phoenician. And then after Phoenician comes the Hebrew. So, yeah, and by the 11th century, these changes were in place. And so the Phoenician script, thus he concludes the paragraph by saying the Phoenician script is the heir of the early alphabetic script. So,
Gotcha. Okay. So, see, let's go ahead and get into the, what the big update is. Okay. So,
yeah.
once again, the update is that it was posted in the Mount Ebal, or the Archaeological and Anthropological Sciences Journal. Now, this has some significance. One, because of course, like, it's actually posted. What that means is, if it's finally published, then that's going to tell us, if it got through peer review, which is essentially, if it's a good journal, it's going to be able to, other archaeologists, other epigraphers are going to be able to look at it, I guess, or look at the work and, like, determine if it was done correctly and what the significance is, I guess. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So they just submitted it. So they've the journal is gonna has the decision to accept it or reject it ultimately, because it's such a sensationalized claim, and we actually just want to know what we want to know all about the inscription. They'll more than likely accept it, I think, so we can actually read the findings for ourselves. So I actually see them accepting it, but the problem is the length it takes for them to accept it. It's exhaustive. Uh, it could be months, maybe a year. So that's the only problem with the journals, is it takes a long time,
Interesting.
especially in the fourth quarter. And it's September and Christmas, and here in the West, in America, the Christmas and Thanksgiving are coming up, so they may postpone it till next year.
Oh, man. Yeah, so the official post date, well, at least Scott Stripling said that he posted on July 18th. So we have a little bit of
Okay.
time, but not a huge amount of time there, since
Yeah.
it's being posted on today, or since we're doing this video on today. But anyways, I got a question for you. So, they originally came out with it, like 4 or 5 months earlier. Now
Yeah, in
all of a
March, late
sudden,
March.
yeah, late March. So they had what 2 or 3 months, and they finally decide to um, submit it to a journal. Why do you
Hmm.
like? Is that normal that it would take so long to submit it?
Not really. You do the field reports. Usually, archaeologists will do a field report, and in that field report, they can start um, coming up. Start the writing process and then submit it. It shouldn't take that long. To my knowledge, it doesn't take that long. It doesn't. It certainly doesn't take months, like March to July. It shouldn't really take that long because you do the field report on site. Yeah. So, and then you convert the field report to a paper. I mean, this is basic. It's a little more stuff involved, but field report, and then they come up with a paper, and then they submit the paper to the article, or as it becomes a conference paper. So
Gotcha.
that's usually how it works.
Hmm.
Like
Okay.
SBL in November would have been fine.
Interesting.
Society for Biblical Literature.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a little weird. Another thing worth mentioning is the quality of the quality of the journal. Would you say this is
Mhm.
a good journal, bad journal? Do we know much about the journal?
From what I've found out, it's not really a good journal. I'm more surprised they didn't try and get it to the biblical for the bar, the Biblical Archaeological Review. That's better, for lack of a better term. I honestly thought that they would have gone there, or they could have just presented. I would have been acceptable if they had just presented this at the SBL or the ETS, the Evangelical Theological Society. It would have been great, but they never did. Now, I'm not saying that they I'm not saying that they may not in November, which is when the conference is up and running. So, but we'll just have to see for that. But I'm at least happy that they finally submitted a journal article.
Think it's
We've been
a red flag at all that they didn't submit it to one of the top journals?
little bit, little bit. I think it's a little bit of a red flag.
But
Yeah,
not a big significance for you?
no, not really. I just want to see it. I know there are a couple of other Old Testament scholars who just want to see the images and just read it so they can write, articles, peer review it basically.
And you kind of mentioned this briefly, but why do we think that it's not the best journal?
Um, Rating for one. Rating is pretty big. It's kind of low on the rating. As far as people accessing it, not a lot of people read it. So the content that they publish may not be good. Things like that usually defines how good or bad a journal actually is. So,
So that means they have, I guess, less of a standard of good quality
mhm.
that they allow to publish. Is that
Yeah,
what it is?
yeah. It's like, well, universities and seminaries operate the same way with ratings and um, the worthiness, I guess, if you will, of the degree programs, etc. So,
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yep. So that's the update, guys. Appreciate you guys watching, and this has been fun.